Hey bros, what is up? Today I'm making a video on everything that I loved about the Resident Evil 2 remake. I've played about 70 hours of this game and have never been so captivated by a single player experience. Just a short disclaimer before we start, this is solely my opinion. I haven't really come across many people who hate this game, so this should be fun. So without further ado, let's get it. Firstly, I love this burger. It's one of my favorite parts of the game. Not because it's of any particular importance to the game, but did you know that the developers actually bought this burger and scanned it into the game? It's just a good sign that they put so much effort into this game to make sure that everything looked perfect. And it does look like quite a delicious burger, objectively. Fun fact, right? I love how the starting sequence keeps up with the traditional zombie reveal trope common in all of the Resident Evil games. I believe that this was done mainly just to flex the improvements that can be seen in the RE engine compared to Resident Evil 7. This zombie's face is much more detailed, with the blood exploding as each vein and muscle is ripped by the zombie's teeth. This remake's cutscenes are able to shine much more because they are pre-rendered, compared to Resident Evil 7's in-game cutscenes. It's not as immersive as Resident Evil 7, but it looks much, much better. Another thing that I really like is how they changed the situation where Claire and Leon get separated at the start. There's no longer some Zombieland scenario where they forgot to check the back seat, and the intro with the truck driver makes the situation less random. You know he's coming and you know that he's infected. It makes the player believe that they can actually be in the situation, which creates a deeper sense of immersion and realism, which is great when you're trying to start off a survival horror experience. Alright boys, you cannot talk about how much you love this game without mentioning the design of the RPD. It has been completely overhauled. This is where the majority of the development time went, and you can tell. The design and lighting in the room is stunning. The main area gives an ominous sense of safety, but it's kind of like you know there's nothing there, but you feel like you're being watched nonetheless. Your footsteps echo around the empty room, and the lights cast a natural reflection off of the tiled floor. Leading on for this, I love how straight away you feel all the safety, and then all of a sudden you need to crawl under the shutter into a dark, wet, blood-stained hallway, and it immediately gives a sense of dread. It plays on the fear people have of the dark and the unknown, and 30 seconds later you are swarmed by zombies in the dark. This further exaggerates the sanctuary of the main area, and adds to the dread when a certain heavy-footed friend invades the area. Another thing I like, it kind of goes without saying, is Marvin. He's just a real good guy. MVP all round. I love the fact that the whole police station is one of the smallest areas in the game, excluding the orphanage. Don't really count that 'cause you're there for like 2 minutes. And yet you spend the most time in the game there. It encourages exploration, and due to the claustrophobic hallways and zombie growls echoing through the dark hallways, you are naturally moving at a much slower pace. You're being cautious. Although you have to do everything in the same order each playthrough via the key system, there are different routes that you can take to save time and potential zombie encounters. The game has you on rails, but does a very good job at disguising this, which means the game is much more replayable as a result. I like how Leon and Claire, respectively, have an emotional connection to their side characters. Leon is simping for Ada from the get-go, and Claire's character gets to take on the mother hen role for the helpless Sherry. I enjoy Claire's scenario more for this reason. Your quest through the sewer and into the nest seems much more genuine when you're trying to save someone than Leon just tagging along with Ada for the shits and gigs. I think that Willie Birkin's design in this game is one of the best boss skins we've seen in the entire series. The great big bulging eye in his shoulder blinks, and the fleshy muscle-like texture of his new arm looks pretty nutty in the new engine. Also, seeing him fight for control within his own body and mutating upon damage adds a new layer of depth to this character that wasn't present in the original. He's much more of a character in this game rather than just a big scary enemy. Now, how can I talk about Resident Evil 2 without mentioning our heavy-footed, fedora-wearing friend, Mr. X? He's the nemesis that we never got. Rest in peace, Nemesis. His unrelenting stalking of you throughout the station causes stress to the player as those heavy footsteps get closer and closer. He breaks the rules and follows you into the main area so that nowhere is now safe. If you start sprinting around or shooting other zombies, he will zero in on your position. He makes what is theoretically a 15-minute section into more of a 40-minute/1 hour session, because when he's chasing you around, you may have to double round to get past him, and it is very easy to forget stuff when he's hot on your heels. I really love how William's last defiant action, as he loses all shreds of his former self, is to save Sherry from Mr. X. It's another layer of characterization that he gets. He sorely needed it, because in the original he didn't really have any. I love how Claire's character and her motives are consistent in the original and the remake. Capcom didn't turn her into a Lara Croft badass who seems to survive 7 story falls. She is just determined to save Sherry and will do anything to accomplish this. She's a badass because of her determination and her motives, not because of her prowess in slaying zombies. I love the design for the nest in this game. Although it was quite a short section, it's eerily quiet in some sections and creates a similar tension to the RPD. Rooms with level 1 access are completely trashed, and there are signs of carnage everywhere. And as you get further and further into the level, when you need higher access to get around, there's much less carnage and it looks like not as much went on. This is how it would actually look in an outbreak. It's quite realistic, as there are less people in these higher security areas. This adds to the realism and the mystery of what's going on in the nest. Another thing that I really love is that they showed us the body transformation from G2 into G3 in a cutscene. William is now an absolute behemoth, and Claire voluntarily hops into the boxing ring with him. This boss fight is the most traditional of the game. You have your hero with all your weapons against the big monster with a clear weak spot that you need to expose and damage. This is an ageless formula that works every time. Just another side note, the soundtrack for the final bosses is phenomenal. It gives a sense of climax and grandness, making the player feel like an absolute badass. This cutscene here is great not only for the moment you get between Claire, Sherry, and Annette, but also it shows the overlap between the scenarios, which the game was deeply missing. With Leon taking the G sample mid cutscene, you now know where he is if you've already played his scenario, and it helps just tie it all together. I love how William has consistently transformed after every boss fight. Even with the minigun, he is very difficult to put down. And although this is in theory the simplest boss fight, it is also one of the most difficult. William has the widest range of attacks in this fight, and he uses verticality to take advantage of Claire's limited mobility. This here is definitely my most favourite part of the remake. Once everything's said and done and you've completed the campaign, you can just get straight into it and do it again and get a completely different experience. There is so much replayability in this game. There are 4 scenarios and 2 proper difficulties to do these on. Completing these scenarios proficiently rewards the player with unlockable guns and special weapons for more replayable playthroughs. There are multiple costumes that can be earned both in-game and bought, and the mods make this game even more replayable. Surely we do a playthrough with the Pregnant Claire mod on. That sounds like a lot of fun, doesn't it, guys? You can play this game with the original soundtrack, the new soundtrack, different filters, different costumes, different weapons, to create a brand new experience each time. And this makes the vanilla playthroughs of the game so much more fun and refreshing, because once you've been playing with a bunch of wacky mods, it's good to just get in there and get that original experience again. Yeah, nah, but overall, guys, the best thing about this game is the Resident Evil community. No joke. They accepted this remake with open arms. Normally in gaming communities, if a classic is remade, it's normally boycotted straight away because anything other than the original is dog shit. But the Resident Evil community embraced it with open arms. This helped to draw in both new players and bring back old players alike. And this also shows Capcom that quality will always be welcomed in this community over quantity. So yeah, I'm probably going to do in everything I disliked about this game, because there definitely were aspects that weren't enjoyable for me, but let's save that for another day. See you guys later.